Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we are all up and refreshed as we start with our Black Business Council in the Built Environment webinar, where today we are going to discuss potholes. And I'm sure all of us, somehow we are emotionally, financially, and economically affected by these potholes that are happening in our country. As we hardly experience the load shedding, we are also experiencing the pothole shedding. And I'm hopeful that today, as we welcome you participants in the platform with a great panel of our expertise and all of us as South Africans who are going to participate in this webinar, at the end of the session, we would have developed great strategies and thoughts as to how we are going to overcome these potholes. And this webinar, to continue to say, it is being inspired by many South Africans who have made a call to say, let's have a discussion on which stakeholders must come together and ensure that this great discussion of the potholes is being directed to many other issues, like an integrated and rigorous and comprehensive plans like Vala Zonke intervention drives, and how can relevant authorities and participants come together to improving our roads in South Africa. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, participants in the platform, we welcome you in this webinar. And without wasting much time, just to make sure that all of us, our connectivity is okay, we can just send our thumbs up in the chat group just to make sure that we are all following and our audios are going well. I am therefore going to request that our administrator plays us a welcome video just to bring us on speed as far as the expectation of our session is concerned today. Indeed, potholes have become unavoidable because we can't travel freely, we can't travel at night. We have lost many families and loved ones due to the potholes. We can't travel, we can't enjoy the beautiful South Africa because of the pandemic of the potholes. And you are therefore welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Black Business Council in the Built Environment webinar session where we are discussing potholes. Can I then request the administrator to play us a welcome video?
Hi everybody, my name is Oratile Signolo and I would like to raise awareness on what's going on in our community. I'm from Hammanskraal Timber and I don't like what's happening on the streets with these potholes. Can we please get people to intervene, especially the BBCEB, to get people to fix these potholes? We cannot go on like this as a community. And I urge other community members to raise up and say something about this issue because it's really, really bad. I urge each and every one of you to just say something. And it's just not just in Timber, it's all over. It's all over. Everywhere where you see potholes, you need to know that your community needs to stand up and say something about these things. So I urge each and every one of you guys to raise awareness on this pothole issue. Thank you.
You'll be forgiven for thinking this is a dam or some riverbank, but no, it's been described as the mother of all potholes in Gauteng. It's in Everton West in the Vaal, and in fact, motorists have now had to snake through right next to the road, which proves impossible in wet weather conditions.
Siya driver party moti zophelela kuphi highway Golden Highway, which is ayekusakholwa ungena ngaphakathi. And manje kunabanye abo drivers singabo drivers sefani ngenxa yokuthini kunabo driver bangana snake. Ayeke akutshela ukuthi angeke afake imoto yakhe endaweni eyimigodi ngokuthini ama bearing ayadora. And vele lokho siyakwazi vele ama bearing ayadora. So ngenxa yokuthi sicela uhulumeni asizame sikhona ukuthola umgwaqo
ele matsa dikoloi tsa rona la tshwantse re tlise di passengers tsa rona ka mo re batla re hesitate ka baka la yona wa bona e jwang tsela e ka mo e dikoti ha e tsamaye.
When the sun is out, this road becomes the local swimming pool.
We have this road like this for the past 10 years. It was last fixed on the year 2011 on August. Since then, we have been suffering with this kind of issue. As you see, we have kids playing around on this pool, and then we have roads which taxi drivers use. We have trucks that also drive in through the pavement, and it's a high risk. It's unbearable, especially for kids. They cannot be able to play around such risky areas.
And just 10 minutes away from the mother of all potholes, another road is littered with potholes, with even sewage seeping through the streets. One of thousands across Gauteng. Aviwe Mtila, Sebokeng in the Val.
Thank you very much, Administrator, with those video clips that we have seen. And indeed, those were mother potholes that we have seen across the country. And safe to say, it has so much cost to business, so much cost to lives. And I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome Mr. Moagi to come and engage with us, we will then establish at the end of our contributions, the mitigating programs, as we have seen the magnitude of these potholes in our country. And ladies and gentlemen, in the platform, allow me to welcome Mr. Moagi, who is an occupational health and safety consultant. And earlier on, he introduced himself as a youth endala, and I'm sure he is going to present to us strategies that we can apply to ensure that we bring all stakeholders on board to mitigate these potholes. And ladies and gentlemen, let's start by saying we put our hands together for Ntate Moagi, even if we can have those hands in silence. Ntate Moagi, the platform is yours.
A beautiful introduction. I would like to say good morning to everyone who's here. I'd like to thank the BBCBE for organizing this session. We always are thanking Abuti Mfanelo, and we leave Abuti Refilwe out. Abuti Refilwe, sorry. We'll make sure we sort you out, got a nice bottle of Jack Daniels after this. Thank you, Nguli, for sharing this. We really appreciate that. I've been asked to build a 15-minute presentation around the dangers of potholes in the country. And I must say 15 minutes is not a lot, to discuss such a heavy subject, considering that it's the end of the month and it's a Friday. I think that's good because we all have pubs and taverns to run to. So it's going to be quite sweet and short. I'll give you a bit of background, give you or tell you about challenges. Then hopefully we can have some interventions. All right, so there's about 8 things that we're going to be discussing. What typically causes potholes? I'm sure we have some minimal civil engineering understanding of what causes road infrastructure to dilapidate. Are the different types of road classifications? There are different types, generally 5 types, and obviously different classifications of roads get different attention, unfortunately. Causal factors, the impact of potholes on our roads. Is there hope? Someone yesterday was saying to me, potholes, or gone wrong, and I think that happens a lot. So the likelihood of us fixing potholes is going to require a lot of hope, a lot of prayers, and obviously a lot of partnerships with everyone that is involved. And because it's a Friday, we're going to have a special way we're going to name and shame the worst affected areas in the country. And the beautiful thing is, I'm proud to say that I've been in almost every single corner of this country identifying potholes. So I think I'm the one person who can honestly say that I've touched every single corner of South Africa and can confidently tell you where are the worst affected areas. And obviously that was through our private sector intervention called Spothole, but I'll discuss that more when I get to that slide. As you all know, we all use roads for a variety of functions, whether it's to access employment, whether it's to access healthcare, whether it's to access educational facilities and so forth. So the upgrade and the management of roads becomes now an integral part of our society and how our economy should function. What is quite interesting is that the Department of Public Works and Roads Manual of Road Maintenance is a beautiful document. And I think I'll ask the BBCDE to share it with everyone who's a participant here. It's a wonderful document. The challenge is that the implementation is a problem. Botswana, our neighbor, sits with more or less the same document. Sharp, one could argue that their population is a bit smaller, but they have a system where now they call it a 5-year road routine maintenance system. So every 5 years, old roads are repaired, and every 5 years, new roads are built, you know, and they are very, very committed to that. So obviously, this is one of the interventions that we can obviously look at as the South African economy. This photo was taken in Batani early last year. Department of Public Works has started with the maintenance of this road. It's not yet fixed, but you can see how bad it looks. It's unbelievable. And I think piggybacking, Madam Chair, on your video, that when taxi drivers and just local motorists, when they move beyond Batani and other towns, they actually drive on the gravel. They no longer use this road, unfortunately. So yeah. Okay, in terms of road classifications, we have class 1, which you now would call your typical ends or national roads. The average daily traffic on those roads would be about 40,000 to about 120,000 average daily traffic. So there's lots and lots of roads there. So as you can see, that picture was taken on the N1. We were driving to Colesberg. I must say, class 1 roads get the major share in terms of the pie, for lack of a better word, in terms of regular upgrades and maintenance, purely because the ADTs are very high. You know, so one can simply draw a similarity to say that is why it's quite likely that you find national roads looking a lot better than municipal roads. And it's exactly true, purely because the ADT is high. So on the right, we're sitting with a regional road that was taken in Sasolburg. I was there last week. It's still like that. We took this photo early 2001, and it's still like that. So no changes have been made. If you look at class 3 roads, I come from Alexandra Township. This was on London Road. We spent about 2 nights diverting traffic away from these potholes. It's a class 3 road. We got in trouble with the Gauteng Metro Cop policing gentleman who felt that we did not have the required permits from Johannesburg Road Agency to be diverting traffic. Before we had gotten to the scene, there were about 9 vehicles that had punctured tires. The one lady, unfortunately, messed up her rim, and obviously she had to call the insurance. But the point is, the road is still like this as I speak to you. Yes, it's a combination of many factors, lots and lots of water seeping under, you know, the roadbed. You know, there's a leaking pipe by the top. If you look at that warehouse on the left, there's a burst water pipe. You know, that's leaking lots and lots of water. So it becomes very difficult for JRA to maintain this, but it's not a new problem. This problem has been existing for the last 2-3 years, give or take. Talking class 4, this photo was taken when we were in Middelburg in the Eastern Cape. Obviously less or few ADT. If you had to take almost all municipal roads across the country, this is how they look. Almost all of them. It doesn't matter where you go. If you go to Sheho, you know, the head office of witchcraft in the country, and Leboakhomo in Limpopo, you'll find the same thing. If you go now to the second, what's this, province that is quite prevalent with potholes, which is the Eastern Cape. Again, the Northern Cape, same. You'll find the same thing. It doesn't matter where you go. And it's partly because the ADT levels, ladies and gentlemen, are very low. And because the ADT levels are very low, there's not a lot of interest, especially governmental interest, in wanting to fix some of these roads. And hence you find a lot of them like this. I can show you thousands and thousands of pictures that we've taken, across the country, just looking at almost each and every single area. So what causes these landmines, for lack of a better word? First and foremost, we're sitting with a massive road routine maintenance backlog that's eloquently explained in the Department of Public Works routine maintenance plan. And the same department has what you call the National Infrastructure Plan 2050, and it includes the fixing of these roads. But yeah, this photo was taken next to the shack that I live in Birch Acres. Even today, that place is still like that. This photo was taken in 2020, 2020 November. To date, ladies and gentlemen, this photo is still like this. So you have a multitude of factors that are causing potholes. First and foremost, the geographics, soil conditions, soil types. Secondly, traffic volume, or as we call it, ADT. Thirdly, environmental factors such as heavy rains. Fourthly, material types that are procured by contractors. And obviously, going back to the third point, environmental factors. Obviously, heat plays a big role. In the chemistry of asphalt. So all these factors coming in together, ultimately result in us experiencing what we call potholes, aka road landmines, because they are landmines, as the chair explained in her video, because some of them are so deep. There's one pothole that we measured the depth, and this was in Pretoria. The depth was about 2.2 meters. So I'll try find a photo. I don't think I included the photo in this presentation. So yeah, the 200 billion backlog comes from a report that was done by the CSIR. But other agencies obviously reached to amounts of about 300, some even to about 400 billion. So the question is, do we have that amount of money? I believe we do. Or we can strategically, obviously, come up with plans to actually use that money more efficiently. Lichtenburg, which is about 65 kilometers from Mafeking, it is unfortunately still like this. Hence, one of the biggest impact of potholes on our roads is business shutdown. Clover left Lichtenburg and they moved to KwaZulu-Natal. Lichtenburg has 2 municipal managers, has 2 speakers, has 2 mayors. So the town is sadly dysfunctional. And if you're going to have a town like that, there's no way one will invest in infrastructure or the upkeep. So a lot of businesses are shutting down, unfortunately. And this is what is now being experienced in Madibeng and Brits, where there's some companies that have decided to close shop because the infrastructure is just so dilapidated that people cannot do business. Some of you do know Mayor Elina Malachi, who was the former mayor of Witbank, or commonly known as Emma Lahleni. She was involved in a horrific car accident. She was driving a Ford Wildtrak, got into an accident with a Ford Everest. That was a head-on collision. And according to the police report, one of the vehicles was actually dodging a pothole, and she obviously succumbed to her injuries and subsequently passed away. So these are serious concerns that are affecting each and every single inhabitant of this country. The damage to vehicles is enormous. I have a friend who works for Speedy Tires in Wynberg in Johannesburg. If you guys want a good deal on tires, you can hit him up. Loads and loads of work on pothole damage. Yes, it's good for the industry, but it's not sustainable because we're losing our loved ones, as the earlier video mentioned. Is there hope? I believe there's hope. Abu Trifilo, I can see you smiling there. There's definitely hope. I do believe there will be a future in this country where roads look this amazing and they look this good. Unfortunately, that's going to take some time. Number one, we need to tackle the infrastructure backlog. I'm happy the Madam Chair spoke about Operation Vula. I've got my reservations, but I feel I do have the right to critique, just like every person on this platform. Yes, we do need to have a plan that tackles infrastructure backlog. Obviously on roads that have a higher ADT, road classifications 1, 2, and 3. Not saying that municipal roads should be ignored, not at all, not at all. But obviously we need to come up with a plan that tackles that nationally, provincially, locally. If you have seen what Ntate Zamane Soul in the Northern Cape is doing, he's established the Northern Cape Construction Company. I was in Kimberley last week, no, actually not last week, 3 weeks ago. They have started working. You know, it is in progress. I'm not too sure in terms of the quality of the materials because contractors that were appointed to fix potholes in Kimberley about 6 months ago, and these were potholes that we captured middle last year. Some of those potholes are resurfacing, unfortunately. You know, so yes, on the left there is hope, but we just need to do it right. Private partnerships. I believe Dial Direct Discovery did partner with the Johannesburg Road Agency with the launching of Pothole Patrol. And obviously they are doing work, but again, the number of potholes in Gauteng are they're just too many. You know, we are currently sitting with a database of all the potholes in the country. So, and obviously I'm not gonna share the exact number on this platform, Nguli, for obvious reasons. The minimizing of corruption. There's a funny trend of when a routine road maintenance contract of about 10 million goes out, you know, 7 million goes to the cronies and the 3 million goes towards the work that is supposed to be done. So obviously, as civil servants, as society, we will have to unfortunately name and shame because we need to fix our roads. Yes, one could argue that the late Babita Diokaran, you know, suffered the same fate where she was a whistleblower and she unfortunately lost her life. But we do need to stand up because I do believe there is a budget of fixing roads. There is. It's just inappropriately used, unfortunately. Better due diligence and oversight, especially on a local level. The 200 municipalities that we visited across the country, actually 211, there was substandard oversight. Unfortunately, a lot of road managers that are appointed within municipalities are very disgruntled. You know, they don't get support. They are given instructions. You know, they can't come up with means and ways of being creative in terms of how they want to fix these roads. You know, which goes to corruption again. The hiring of obviously competent contractors is something that obviously we would have to look at. It is obviously a big thing, and I know that SAFSEC, you know, as an organization, do have a plan of their own around how they feel that potholes should be fixed in this country. Now back to the naming and shaming. Please excuse my typo in terms of the numbers. Nkuli, I had so much load shedding. As you know, I've got allergic conjunctivitis and I have tonsillitis. So yeah, I'm really not well, but whenever BBCBE requires us to do work, we will do work, even if we're sick. So number one, everyone who comes from the Free State and the Northwest, those are the worst provinces in the country with the prevalence of potholes. Worst. We've touched every single corner of the Free State, from Viljoenskroon all the way to Bloemfontein, all the way to Marquard, all the way to Bramford. We've been everywhere. Same with the Northwest, from Brett's all the way to Bona Bona. We've touched every single corner. They are the worst. Number 2, Limpopo, from Leboa Khomo to Jane Fest to Chiwidi in Toyando. We've touched every single corner. Eastern Cape, and sadly, the Premier Oscar Mabuyane was saying that there's a plan to fix potholes. You go to Beacon Bay now in East London, many potholes. You go to Gqeberha, many potholes. We were in Mthatha recently. It's bad. Western Cape. There were areas in the Western Cape where we actually struggled to find potholes, where we literally struggled to find potholes. What we found is that, especially in Mossel Bay, their routine pothole patrol works 24 hours. Like, those guys do not sleep. So they have the same system as Operation Vala Zonke, but it's just more efficient. So obviously, I think those are some of the things that we can learn from our counterparts in the Western Cape. Private intervention, Madam Chair, I'm not gonna blab around spot hole because it will sound as if I'm trying to market our organization, but I believe we've done well with the limited resources. I mean, Spot Hole is essentially a technology company, that we've built to make motorists aware of all potholes in the country. So we've identified all potholes in the country and we've put them on the app so that people can be aware of that. And for the longest time, we've been trying to sell this data to municipalities, departments, with no success, but that's not a problem. The point is, this is one of the interventions, because whether we like it or not, we are going to have to live with potholes. I don't believe that we can eradicate all these potholes, unfortunately. I don't believe it. The middle photo is Junior Tsekweng. He's our provincial manager for Kimberley. This is in Kimberley CBD. And this photo was taken quite recently. And yeah, the pothole situation is really not improving. And you must remember, Kimberley is the capital of the Northern Cape. It's not improving. I'm sure we all know Donald on the right. I don't know why he's celebrating, but yeah, he was in Limpopo. We were attending a road program with the Department of Road and Transport in Limpopo. So these are some of the interventions that we need. I had obviously spoken about that union of Dial Direct and Discovery. So some of these interventions can work. Lastly, governmental intervention. Operation Vala Zonke, two conflicting statements. The office of the Ministry of Transport said the aim of Vala Zonke is that Ukuvala Zonke. That means to close up everything. But then later, the DG said, no. They're going to focus on roads with higher ADT, meaning they're going to focus on national roads and regional roads. Again, leaving municipalities out of this. So maybe it's a plan to redirect, provincial, maybe it's a plan to allow municipalities now to actually work efficiently. I am not sure, but I believe that national roads, purely because of the fact that they have higher ADT levels, they'll be taken care of, and some regional roads, but I think municipalities are going to suffer the same fate. I had a meeting with a gentleman called Ntate Gil, who's the chief director of roads in the Northwest, specifically Mafike. He also told me that he feels that the province does not have a budget to cover all provincial roads. So obviously it's a concern. Yes, they've got a budget, but they don't have a budget to cover all the roads. Northern Cape Construction Company, I've already spoken about it. Local municipalities, again, some of the Western Cape municipalities are doing very well. Specifically in the Western Cape, where we found the most potholes was in Beaufort West, but I believe in Tate Gayton Mackenzie has come up with a plan. So we haven't been in Beaufort West in about 4 months, but we will be visiting that town soon, just to see. And Madam Chair, thank you very much. I believe I did not waste anyone's time, and And if your throats are dry, can we please give people a drink? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ntate Moagi. That was a very, breathtaking presentation that you have given to us. And of course, when you look at that slide that was giving us 5 points, that will bring back our hope. And I was very inspired to say, give, this female contractors an opportunity to valor these potholes. And I can tell you, South Africa will be a better country. We must add that slide as far as the collaborations and capacity building are concerned, to say the female leadership will take it up and close those potholes. I see that we've got a 4 participants in our platform. Can I then see, with a show of hands, those who wish to contribute to this webinar as organized by the Black Business Council? The bill, ladies and gentlemen, the platform is yours. I see a hand of Ntate Gregory Mofokeng. Administrator, you will help me to say if there are other hands that are up and I can't recognize them. I think we'll give them an opportunity on your side. If you see them, let's recognize them. Ntate Gregory Mofokeng, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you very much for the presentation that was made by Ntate Moagi. Now, I just wanted to ask Ntate Moagi, in terms of the database of potholes that he is collecting throughout the country. I get a sense that the company, which is Pothole, goes back to check on this pothole. I just want to check with him, what is the the regular visits that they make. So if they come today to come and check a pothole, do they come back after a month or 2 months, or how does it work? Number one. Number two, do they have spotters in each and every municipality in the country, or how are they managing to pick up all of this information that they are able to package and present to all the stakeholders on potholes on a regular basis? And number three, just to get a sense from him, because he clearly is having a discussion with the provincial authorities and the municipalities in terms of the budgets that are being allocated to address this potholes problem. I just want to get a sense from him as to, can they quantify the problem of potholes in the country? To say that, because it sounds to me that they do have a countrywide coverage to a certain extent. I do admit that it will be a rough estimate, but it will be interesting just to get a sense as to how big is the problem of potholes from a monetary point of view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ntate Mofokeng. Do we have any other participant who wish to augment and put an emphasis on the significance of having an integrated planning as to overcoming these challenges of potholes? Any take from our participants? Okay, maybe without wasting much time, let me give to Abuti Tumi to respond, maybe just also to expand on possible collaborations that you may have not mentioned in your presentation, like engaging, for an example, local municipalities or the South African organized local government, if there is any, as Ntate Mofokeng has asked. Abuti Tumi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ntate Mofokeng, thank you very much. Those are very good questions. When we started the program, I think just like with any program, you have a forecast, to say, I'd like a particular area to be done in a particular fashion, with a particular amount of money invested. So the frequency of spotters was weekly. We had we had spotters in each and every single province across all 9 provinces. And all those spotters were reporting to a provincial manager. The provincial manager's job was to qualify the data, but most importantly, to do thorough assessments on regional routes that were typically covered by public works. So now the spotters would typically do local roads. So for example, you'd have a spotter in Standerton. You know, who knows Standerton? Who basically lives there? We would have a spotter who lives in Middelburg. And it's weird. Middelburg is one town in Mpumalanga that has the least potholes. I must say the municipality there really know their story. But in terms of frequency in Tatmofokeng, it was weekly. It did obviously come a bit down due to some constraints, but originally it was weekly. And the prevalence of spotters, like I said, there was one time we had over 60, 65 spotters around the whole country. You know, so our spread was very, very wide. And we realized that in the Western Cape, there were not a lot of potholes. Sharp Beaufort West, the city of Cape Town, especially townships around Cape Town, Gugule, Tunyanga, Khayelitsha, you know, so we had spotters there. And thirdly, in terms of the quantification of the problem from a monetary point of view, we were asked by the provincial treasury of Mafeking to actually draft a document like that, but they wanted us to localize it only on Mafeking. Ramofokeng, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money if you look at what would typically be the intention of the municipality. You know, would it be to ensure that they don't fix these roads again in the next 2 years, or would it be let's just satisfy motorists in the interim, you know, so that we can keep people quiet? And sadly, that was the strategy that was adopted by the Solplaki municipality, where about 12 million was invested on a program, actually 20 was invested on a program to fix potholes, the very same potholes that are now resurfacing, almost all of them. You know, so it actually depends where the municipality would like to go. If we now talking proper roads, obviously they're going to cost more. But I believe that our data can actually do the mathematical calculation of how much it could cost, you know, a municipality to actually fix these potholes. And obviously we can zoom into each and every single municipality, then come up obviously with a provincial budget, then obviously come up with a national budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Abu Tumi, on that input. Maybe I would like to also challenge Ntate Mofokeng just to give us one point as to these very two critical areas that the BBCBE is looking at, which is providing intervention strategies to assist government and also working together with communities in combating these potholes. Maybe just to check with you, Ntate Mofokeng, the possible areas of collaboration from what Ntate Tumi has presented and the work that you are doing, and you know, arriving to an ultimate solution of ensuring that there is sufficient willpower from the leadership to collaborate with relevant stakeholders who are committed to ensure that we overcome this war on potholes. Any take on that as your organization intends to pursue such collaboration strategies?
Yes, Program Director, I think two areas that one can mention. The first is that, you know, we do have a program that we will be rolling out together with SANRAL and hopefully the Department of Transport, just to bring awareness around, and I think this webinar is also part of that program, by the way, just to bring awareness around, you know, the whole safety, you know, as far as potholes are concerned. So as an organization, we are part and parcel of a plethora of, you know, stakeholders that are working with government to ensure that we highlight the challenge of potholes and also ensure that we keep this issue alive to the extent that those that are tasked with the responsibility of making sure that we do maintain our roads, we close potholes on a regular basis, do their work. Because we all know what the damage is to the infrastructure. Once you start experiencing potholes, you start having problems, because it will mean that in the medium term, over the medium term, you will have to, redo those roads. So it's like investing in new infrastructure. Ideally, roads should be maintained regularly. You should be addressing the cracks before they become potholes, in fact. So I think that's one area around the awareness that we are definitely working on. One of the second issue will be around the work that we've done as the BBCBE and the BBC, by the way, in terms of ensuring that there is significant investment in infrastructure generally, and the potholes will then be a beneficiary of that. So from a legislative perspective, which is where we play, is that we've worked together with National Treasury to amend what we call Regulation 28. Regulation 28 essentially is the regulation that directs pension funds as to where and how they spend money. Now, what has happened there is that there has been an increase in the threshold of infrastructure investment by pension funds. What it simply means is that when you are a working person and you are contributing to a pension fund, your pension fund is now going to invest more in infrastructure. The aim here is to make sure that there is private sector investment into infrastructure and also areas such as potholes. It will then address the issue that Mr. Moahi spoke about in terms of his engagement with provincial authorities, where they were saying they do not have enough funds, to invest in closing potholes. That means then there will be room for the private sector to have triple Ps, public-private partnerships with municipalities, with the provincial departments of roads and transport, so that they can then be able to mobilize private sector funding to invest in this critical area of maintenance of our roads. The triple P framework itself is now, National Treasury is concluding the process of reviewing that. We are busy with that at NEDLEC, and I'm hoping that in the next month or so, the Minister of Finance will make an announcement to say that the triple P framework has been reviewed. What it then means is that the time that it takes from government receiving proposals from private sector to concluding agreements between all the parties and for money to flow will be less than the current timeline, which is plus minus 5 years, which is too long. So we're hoping that the timelines will be far shorter. We're looking at at least a minimum period of 6 months, from the time that you will take a proposal to the local municipality and say, I think I can mobilize funds from the private sector to close potholes. If that bill is 50 million rands or 100 million rands for a particular municipality, what the triple P framework then means is that in the next 6 months, there should be a conclusion of agreements between the private sector and government so that money can start flowing. And then we can then be able to, to close those potholes with money coming from the private sector. How is the government going to refund that money? When one looks exclusively at local municipalities get awarded or they get allocated funds on an annual basis. And the legislation that is applicable there is called DORA, Division of Revenue Act. And that Division of Revenue Act has also now been amended. What it then means is that National Treasury will then be able to pay the private sector directly from its coffers, as opposed to taking money, giving it to municipalities and hoping that municipalities will pay the money that has been invested by the private sector, for instance, in closing potholes. So at the moment, what happens is that National Treasury can't take money elsewhere. They must take that money, give it to the municipality, and the municipality hopefully will then pay the private sector service provider. And we know that that has not worked so well, because municipalities, when they receive the money, they've got other competing priorities such as salaries and so on. Now, with the amendment of DORA, what it then means is that as a private sector player, you can invest 100 million rands in a particular municipality closing potholes, that 100 million rands will then be refunded directly from National Treasury, because National Treasury will then be able to say to municipality X, we're giving you R1 billion as your allocation for this financial year, but you do owe 100 million rands to this company because they've invested the 100 million rands closing potholes. So we're not going to give you that 100 million rands. We're going to give that 100 million rands directly to that company that has made the investment. So those are the three pieces of legislation, Chair, that we have worked on together with government, just to try and make it easier to mobilize private sector funding towards this backlog on infrastructure, which also includes potholes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ntate Mofokeng, for that great extensive input. There is another question again in the platform post to Ntate Moagi to say, Memuipone Masalesa wants to know if your company has made any attempt to attend to these potholes and what are the solutions. So that is a question from Memuipone Masalesa. Let me give Ntate Moagi to wrap up and also get Mr. Sanya to prepare himself for the next presentation. Ntate Moagi, can I give you to respond to Mrs. Moagi's question and just have a minute to wrap up your presentation?
Yeah, it's not quite specific. However, on a regular basis, Madam Chair, I mean, we meet with road managers of various municipalities. Just to give you an example, 2 weeks ago, Nekenale and Tate Achi, I forgot Abuti Achi's surname. He's the newly appointed road manager, yeah, JD Max, which is now Potchefstroom. I had this discussion with him, and he promised Horno, you know what, we can have a follow-up discussion in the next coming weeks, you know, because he's into the idea, he understands it. But what you need to understand is that sometimes road managers suffer the same bureaucracy that private companies are suffering when they are trying to do business with government. So obviously a road manager will have to go present that to maybe a head of corporate services or the infrastructure director, who would have to now present it to the MM, who would now have to present it to council. So it's not as easy as if I speak to now the person who's on the ground, who needs this the most, you know, that within a week it will be solved. I mean, I've spoken to a Mesharon Sebe, who's in the civil department of the Steve Chota local municipality, who told me that to me, I'd like to sit behind a desk and look at where all my potholes are within the entire municipality. And that's what we have provided. But the buy-in becomes very bureaucratic and it takes too long. You know, so Memuipone's question is that we are trying by all means, all the time we are knocking on doors, you know, trying to see all of these people because all of them need it. My last meeting, I was talking to Ntate, his surname is also Mofokeng Khao. He's the CFO for the Dr. Ruth Mompati district in Vryburg. And he said to me, we need your service, we can buy it, but I'm having problems convincing the council because they want to use this money for something else. So like Ntate Mofokeng has explained that sometimes there's some conflicting ideologies, you know, when it comes to what do municipalities actually need the most. So we are trying, Madam Chair, to be honest with you, but yeah, we do meet up with a variety of obstacles. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moagi, for that response. Let me give over to Me Zanele to also have an input. Me Zanele. While we are waiting for Me Zanele to come in, Ntate Moagi and Mr. Mofokeng and the rest of the participants in the platform, I think the most important thing, Mr. Mofokeng, that must be emphasized throughout, you know, this journey, it's those continuous awareness campaigns and educational, you know, sessions, so that we continue to reignite the willpower, both from the political leadership and the administrative leadership, to keep on trying eliminating this red tapes that seems to be, appearing now and then as we want to bring these solutions. I don't know if Mayor Zanele is able to unmute. Okay, let me request Nkuli, Ntate Mofokeng, your hand is up.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the issues that we have brought to government's attention is the whole issue around red tape, and to say that it is important that we need to assess the type of red tape that is there and look at a way of improving this. And I think Mr. Moagi's presentation, as insofar as his engagement with officials is concerned, is a classic case where you find that officials are of a particular view, and they obviously are clear in terms of how the problem has to be resolved. But you find that there is that misalignment with the political leadership. So, and this is where we find the problem exists in most instances, where you find that there is not enough, a focus on how to resolve problems around maintenance, and politicians unfortunately like new bling stuff. We must open a new road, we must open a new clinic, we must open a new this, we must open a new that. However, they then take their ball away from the maintenance side of things, which then leads to further deterioration of that infrastructure. And so one of the things that we are going to present to Mr. Nkosi, that has been appointed now by the presidency to look at the issue of red tape, is to how do we empower officials to take these decisions? Because unfortunately, sometimes political considerations come in the way of decisions that are supposed to be assisting officials in terms of the maintenance of infrastructure. I think we have to find a way of empowering officials, because I think officials understand the problem and they also have solutions. But unfortunately, you find that politicians come from a different perspective altogether. And because of the power that the politicians have, it's very difficult for officials to convince them and to get them to buy into the vision of maintenance, because politicians want to prioritize the ribbon cutting more than the normal hard work of maintaining existing infrastructure. So red tape is a problem, and we are definitely part and parcel of the conversations on how to reduce red tape around decisions that affect infrastructure. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ntate Mofokeng, with that input. And I think with the same breath that you are, capacitating officials, I think it should be done even to the private sector and the service providers, where this material is always procured, to encourage them to give long-lasting material, so that municipalities also, or provincial and national governments, are able to budget accordingly as far as the issue of the maintenance budget is concerned. And ladies and gentlemen, and our participants in the panel, allow me to bring our next speaker, Mr. Sanja, who is the Business Development Officer of the FEM organization. With his great wealth of experience, ladies and gentlemen, let's, just wherever we are, put our hands together and welcome him to start with his presentation. Mr. Sanya, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Program Director, and good morning to all the delegates attending this webinar. Thank you to BBCBE for the invite, and yeah, certainly a great initiative from the organization. Okay, so my presentation is more around COIDA, and just to maybe provide some insight in terms of the statistics. We of course will come into the point where there are any injuries or occupational diseases that arise within the construction industry. So COIDA is statutory insurance, and meaning that any employer within South Africa that has one or more employees has to register for workmen's compensation. So basically, it's to provide compensation for disablement caused by occupational injuries or diseases sustained or contracted by employees arising out of and in the course of their employment, or for death resulting from such injuries or diseases. So some of the employee benefits that we would pay out from a COIDA perspective is the death of the employee, the total, the temporary total or temporary partial disablement of an employee, the employee to be permanently disabled, the employee to require medical aid, or contract an occupational disease. And I think in particular within the construction industry, noise-induced hearing loss seems to be the highest cause of occupational diseases. So some info about FEM. We operate under license from the Department of Employment and Labor. We've been in existence since 1936, and we cover over 300,000 construction employees nationally. So also just to provide some context that we operate under license alongside the compensation fund and Rand Mutual. So we're not a third party. I think many people make the mistake that we're administrators, but we're a separate insurer specifically for the construction industry. The COID Act Amendment Bill, to bring to the attention of the attendees or the delegates at this webinar. So the COID Act Amendment Bill is in its final stages of being approved. It's currently with the presidency, and we have some sort of expectation that it will be implemented within 2023. So there are going to be quite significant changes coming across in the COID Act Amendment Bill. However, once that's been enacted, we will then, from an FEM perspective, we intend hosting webinars and roadshows as well. And please look out for those invites. But the key focus, or the core focus, will be on rehabilitation and return to work. In fact, from an FEM perspective, we have initiated this process where we find that we have pensioners, unfortunately, who are unskilled, and when they are disabled, it's highly unlikely and very difficult for them to be employed within construction, or if not another industry as well. So from a rehabilitation and reintegration perspective from FEM, we've engaged with some of our pensioners, or majority of them, in offering them courses, for example, in health and safety, or getting somebody to complete their Code 14 driver's license, and hopefully then can contribute towards society and the economy as well. But once that's been promulgated, certainly we'll of course have to also look at the further compliance requirements with that particular clause. The other aspect is, if the accident is attributable to the serious and willful misconduct of the employee, compensation will still be payable to the employee in terms of the Act. We will then also, in terms of continuation of pensions to the dependents on the death of the injured employee who was receiving a pension regardless of the cause of death. So what would have previously happened is that we would have stopped paying the pension, but now this will be continuing. Recoveries from the road accident funds will no longer occur, and penalties for non-compliance for COIDA will be implemented quite rigorously. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, it's quite concerning when we look at the high number of accidents within the construction industry, but in particular, when you look at the fatalities, we cover just over 300,000 employees, which is probably about 50% of the formal sector of construction employees in the country. However, when we look at it on an annual basis, since 2000, we've killed, there've been 1,592 fatalities that we've covered at FEM, which is quite a high number, and averaging of 72 fatalities per year or 6 deaths per month. So this is certainly a major concern, and a number of initiatives that we're trying to roll out in conjunction with BBCBE as well, to try and reduce the number. Of course, when we look at it, when COVID-19 occurred in 2020, and even though the construction industry went into lockdown, including significant restrictions, but within that year there were still 48 fatalities that were recorded at FEM, and not majority of those were as a result of COVID-19. And also then looking at in 2021, where there were 57 fatalities that had been reported through to FEM. So the numbers, of course, when we talk about statistics, doesn't provide a true reflection of the pain and suffering. And when we talk about statistics, we always say that it's numbers without tears. So, the individuals, the families who suffer as well, have huge consequences and impacts on them, on their lives as well. Looking at this particular graph, which is a bit busy, but this gives you an indication, of the number of employees that we covered at FEM. It seemed to have peaked in 2016, and there was a decline, and in conjunction with the decline in the economy as well, and then also as a result of COVID-19. But looking at 2021, this number will increase once the actual number of employees are assessed, with the return of earnings, which we'll be busy concluding at this stage. So yeah, looking at the accident frequency since 2000 has been in decline. So when we look at the accident frequency, it means the number of employees we cover and the number of claims that have been submitted. So we've seen a significant increase in terms of the number of employees since 2000 up until 2016, but this accident frequency has been declining. So in 2007, there were 10,500 accidents, but we've been declining to an average of about 8,500 accidents per year from 2012 until 2019, when we had about 8,000 accidents. So still showing you that when we look at it from a lagging indicator perspective, a lot needs to be done to reduce the number of accidents within construction. This is the statistics that's available on our website, and noting that when we look at for 2021, and we had 56 fatalities. I know the previous graph showed that 57, but this particular slide as of the end of December shows 56. We had 10 fatalities, and I'm going to focus mainly on motor vehicle accidents, and in keeping in line with the theme of this particular webinar, which is potholes. And many of the incidents or the accidents that we see coming through are simply, many of them are unexplainable as well. And I'll talk about of a few case studies later in the presentation, but noting that there were 10 fatalities as a result of motor vehicle accidents in 2021. Fall onto different levels, still, a major cause of or contributor in terms of number of fatalities, inhalation, absorption, and ingestion. There were 11 fatalities, and majority of these were as a result of COVID-19 in 2021. Just to give you an overview of the accident statistics from previous years, I've just pulled out the accident stats for 2017. So what we've also identified is that motor vehicle accidents comprise probably about 50 to 60% of all fatalities that occurred that are reported to FEM on an annual basis. So in 2017, there were 88 fatalities, and 51 of those were as a result of motor vehicle accidents. So it's quite alarming. When we also look at the average cost of an accident as well for motor vehicle accidents, it's 119,000 Rand per accident. 91 individuals were permanently disabled, where that did not result in a pension, and 12 more serious accidents where those pensions where permanent disabilities resulted in pensions. When you look at 2010, when we recorded 101 fatalities within the construction sector, 65 of those fatalities were as a result of motor vehicle accidents. So showing you that the true severity of motor vehicle accidents having on the lives of construction workers within the country. Over the years, we've initiated a number of webinars as well from an FEM perspective, and hoping that we will change this tide from as a result of motor vehicle accidents, where it's causing a number of fatalities and permanent disabilities as well. And when we look at the cost of work-related accidents, so from an FEM perspective, as an insurer, we would certainly pay all the medical costs, the funeral benefit, the pension where applicable. And we also then note that there's intangible aspects as well. So the trauma that the individual goes through, we visited a policyholder where there were 10 employees, and 4 of those employees had died in a motor vehicle accident. And I can tell you the company couldn't operate for about 2 weeks because majority of all of the colleagues were too distraught. So that's the impact that motor vehicle accidents have on the lives or the company as well. Looking at the families who lose a breadwinner within the household, so that certainly has a major impact. So this is some of the descriptions of fatalities that we've recorded, and of course it's not all, but from 2021, I just pulled from a report some of the fatal incidents, but noting that with the motor vehicle accidents with multiple vehicles, deceased was a passenger on the way home. Employee fell off the moving vehicle whilst on the back to the office from site. So yeah, I mean, this occurs far too often, and looking where we're seeing an employee is knocked by a car while waiting for a colleague. Car was knocked at the back and then lost control to the oncoming traffic to collide with an 8-ton tipper truck. So these are some of the severe incidents that occur. And also noting that when you look at the age categories, fairly young individuals who had a long time that they could have been contributing to the upliftment of society and the economy within South Africa. This particular table also looks, if can you imagine an employee was working with the paving team, sweeping, took a step onto the road, and then the roller ran over him, died on the spot. So certainly very traumatic type of incidents that are causing these fatalities. This particular male, who was 51, his head was caught between the stator and the hood to sustain the crush injury that resulted in a fatality. Can you imagine the trauma that was experienced? So some of the health and safety initiatives, we pay out grants to our health and safety partners or the industry bodies, and certainly look towards them for assisting construction companies with health and safety. We also have an FEM Construction Health and Safety Committee where we monitor the percentage of health and safety compliance at construction sites. We implement processes to engage and target construction workers to prevent accidents. Then the next point here is the FEM Health and Safety Think Tank. So this is where we have professors from the top universities in South Africa that come through and provide their expert advice and studies that we could simulate to the construction industry or to FEM policyholders. We are in discussion at this point in time as well to roll out a publication for FEM policyholders that will hopefully improve health and safety. Health and safety training courses for SMMEs. So I'm sure I'm just in discussion with Nkuli that perhaps if there are any SMMEs or employees that would like to attend the health and safety training course, to please contact us and we can arrange for that to take place. Health and safety awareness campaigns. We hosted September this month, which was quite well attended. We have our main flagship campaign this year, which is called Zero is No Accident. And we then analyze our policyholders with high accident statistics and try to reach out to them to of course reduce the number of accidents and fatalities that occur. Industry and policyholder health and safety statistics. I'm not going to go into too much of detail, but if all FEM policyholders have access to this information where they can certainly analyze the accident statistics, so meaning that they could view the average number of employees compared to the number of accidents that have been submitted on an annual basis, how many claims are opened, the accident frequency for a policy compared to the accident frequency for the rest of the industry. The claims per cause for policyholders struck by motor vehicle accidents, claims per agency since 2016. So it gives a good overview in terms of the initiatives and the areas of focus where policyholder can perhaps reduce the number of accidents. The claims per location where employees are injured, the claims per nature, superficial wounds, penetrating wounds. So where are the most serious accidents taking place on the bodies of employees? So unfortunately, when you look at motor vehicle accidents, and this is from the Arrive Alive campaign, and quite an alarming statistics when you look at it in South Africa, that 134,000 people had been killed from 2017 to 2016 over a 10-year period. And that is quite alarming. When you talk about lagging indicators versus leading indicators, and you can see the numbers are very much similar over the years. And certainly from a society perspective, from a government perspective, we definitely need to create these awareness campaigns, be it not only specific to the construction industry, but how do we then target other industries as well? And a lot of the deceased are passengers and also pedestrians as well. You can see quite in this gray bar where we can see there's thousands of people who are dying on the roads annually. So case study, one of the major incidents we covered a few years ago in 2017, where there was a vehicle with the vehicles transporting workers, and these were your proper Mercedes minibuses transporting workers, not in the back of a bakkie, but there was then an incident where they had crashed into where a truck crashed into them, and these were the 18 deceased and 14 injuries where they were quite serious with hospitalization. So these are the type of incidents that we have to process at FEM, and certainly has a huge impact when we meet with the dependents of the deceased. So I just did some research and looking at it from the issue in terms of potholes, and According to Arrive Alive, the threat of potholes can be more severe than merely a financial risk, and they have witnessed crash reports of or even fatal crashes caused by head-on collisions directly related to potholes. So can you imagine somebody who's traveling at night and sees a pothole in front of them, swerves, and then hits onto somebody on a head-on collision? That's going to be a major cause or major possibility of fatalities occurring within that accident, and where we're seeing this happen far too often. Also, from a financial aspect, looking at the damage that caused to vehicles, whether it's going to be a construction vehicle that will, of course, require repairs, that is going to be also a financial risk to the employer. Looking at KH plant, where they've also provided some sort of statistics in Johannesburg that an average of 1,000 potholes are reported to authorities each week, and the city claims to fix up to 4,500 potholes per month. Looking at the city of Cape Town, reportedly spends more than 110 million rands per year repairing 250 potholes per week. So it's quite significant in terms of the cost to the municipalities, but also noting that it's going to have a detrimental effect on the economy at large as well, when we constantly see a number of contributing factors to serious accidents. Some of the policyholders, the larger contractors, have implemented a number of measures to try and create awareness around motor vehicle accidents to the employees, and also maybe to encourage BBC BE members to, or the contractors to also create awareness and encourage workers, where there are vehicles, to inspect the vehicles and ensure that it's safe for the transportation of employees. Riding on construction vehicles. So this was a poster that was put up by Stephanie Stocks and provides a good depiction in terms of the unsafe practice of vehicles on site. So construction economics, poverty eradication, we always preach this when we look at South Africa. I think it was in 2015 where 55% of the population was in poverty, and certainly construction having a huge impact on that. When we look at it, I attended a conference where we had Prof. Ramakopa from the presidency who presented on the infrastructure development plan, and certainly looking at the trillions of rand that's planned, certainly will create massive amounts of employment, but also we need to be quite prepared that, looking similarly to 2010 where we covered 100 fatalities, we shouldn't be seeing a repeat of that, meaning that when the production or the productivity within construction expands, there shouldn't be a correlation in terms of the number of fatalities or number of serious accidents that we see coming through at FEM. So certainly from poverty eradication, the contribution of construction has a huge impact on that. From a job creation perspective, looking at it, especially from the foreign direct investment as well, linking this together, where we're seeing a number of renewable energy projects that are taking place, creating employment within the country. When we talk about the contributing of construction to the to the GDP, which is about 2.5% of GDP within the country, but contributes to about 7.5% of jobs within South Africa. And when you look at it worldwide, construction contributes to about 13% of jobs. So South Africa has a long way to go, and certainly looking at once the infrastructure development takes place, we will then see an increase in terms of jobs within the country. The multiplier effect. So certainly when we see the number of schools, the number of manufacturing plants, and the number of new cities that have been developed, will definitely lead to job creation, and certainly will result in foreign direct investment into South Africa. Unfortunately, we are still affected with load shedding, with also an economic decline, many countries going into recession, but certainly health and safety should be a priority during difficult economic times, and definitely continued commitment to maintain health and safety, to improve health and safety from a management perspective. They need to be quite integral in this particular aspect, focus on psychosocial health, both workers who are dismissed and those who are retained. Many companies in the construction sector are retrenching as well. How do they then encourage or maintain the good mental health of those employees as well, maintain focus on emerging risks, pandemic, climate change, looking at the flooding that took place within KZN this year, the climate change, the huge flooding within developed countries. It has major impact on their economies. How do we then mitigate it from a South African perspective? New technologies and materials, empower and encourage workers to maintain health and safety approaches for their well-being. So I think the limitations on health and safety practitioners and leadership as well. So employees also need to take accountability for their and their colleagues' health and safety within the workplace. So thank you once again to the management of BBCB for this invite, and wishing you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanya, for that presentation. And I'm sure it calls for collaboration on the statement that Mr. Mufokeng had said earlier on about, working with municipalities in ensuring that these services find a great expression and platform. And I see a hand of Mr. Moagi is up. Can I give you an opportunity to have a bite, as we are already in the question and comments session, Mr. Moagi?
Thank you, Meh. Mr. Sanjay, outside of identifying potholes, I physically live on construction construction environments almost on a daily. And for me, it's a massive, massive problem, especially when we're talking now contractor management, or what is commonly referred to as subcontractor management. A lot of these guys struggle to comply, especially with Section 81 of the COID Act. So what I wanted to find out from you as a question is, you said the amendment will be touching on severe penalties for non-conformance. And obviously we know these people obviously are just starting out their new business NNN. So the first question is, how severe are these penalties going to be? If someone obviously is working and they don't fully comply with the COID Act. That's the first question. The second is more of a comment slash maybe a proposal. I believe maybe as IPS we could assist. We engage the SACP CMP, who is the regulatory body of project managers, construction project managers, and construction health and safety practitioners, to say, how about we embark on a study? We've already agreed on what we call the idea of work. How about we embark on a study that looks at now the value add of having a construction health and safety agent on a project, a construction health and safety manager representing the principal contractor, and a construction health and safety officer on the project, vis-a-vis now the spike or the decline of incidents. Because common sense should say, on the basis that we are flooding the industry with people who have undergone a process that allows them to be called competent construction health and safety practitioners, then one should have a decline in the number of fatalities or non-disabling injuries that are experienced. So I think as a comment, would FEM have an appetite, to look at something like that? Because I think it will definitely do wonders. I mean, we obviously sitting with a number of agents across the country, number of managers across the country, number of officers across the country. So it would be, I think it would be something great for the industry to actually embark on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mohaki. Yeah, so I think certainly from an FV, from a COIDA perspective, the penalties, we also look at it from a, not necessarily only the claim side of it, but also from the assessment side of it. So, meaning if companies are under declaring, there are penalties, for example, 10% that we can include, or where a company has not reported an accident, then we can perhaps, there's going to be variation of tariffs where we can increase it quite significantly. But then also looking at where a policyholder has not, where an employer has not submitted a claim, then can we then recover those costs? Or where a policyholder is not, or where an employer, has not paid their premium. So those are the type of penalties, but not necessarily from an OHS or the health and safety. The OSH Act will certainly make provision for the penalties where there's poor health and safety measures that are being implemented. But we will be hosting roadshows once the COID Act Amendment Bill has been promulgated. On the aspect of SACP CMP and the agents, so I'm also from a health and safety perspective quite engaged with a number of initiatives as well. I sit on the SACP CMP There's a VA committee as well, and then there's also the presidential committee as well that I sit on. But also noting that when we talk about agents and construction health and safety managers and construction health and safety officers, we also need to, take cognizance of the fact that when we look at the number of, for example, CIDB, when you talk about grade 1 to grade 4, which probably comprises maybe about 80%, and let's talk for numbers, let's say 57,000 contractors in grade 1 for that matter, just giving an arbitrary value, whereas you compare somebody who's in a grade 8 or 9, which is in the hundreds or less than 100. And I think the capability and the number of the agents nationally would not be able to cope with the number of projects that are ongoing. So there's a number of initiatives that are in place as well to increase the number of these health and safety practitioners. But the other factor is that your SMMEs, or your small contractors, your micro contractors, your emerging contractors, unfortunately are unable to afford even to have a health and safety officer or a health and safety rep. And I think that's what we need to also try and focus on. And that's one of the core focuses for FEM as well. How do we then upskill the SMMEs, whether we provide health and safety training courses, because ultimately some of the larger contractors, what they are doing now is acting more as project managers and then subcontracting. So those subcontractors come onto site, unfortunately they have accidents, and yeah, it becomes an issue. And what happens is then there's certainly the subcontractor has a letter of good standing, so they're quite safe in terms of submitting claims. But I think, yeah, there's a lot to be done. SACP CMP is one facet that certainly has made an impact. You got the construction regulations, you got the OSH Act. How do we then consolidate this all and certainly improve the health and safety within construction? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay, on that. Memwi Poni, your hand is up. Let's give you an opportunity to input.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm sure I'm audible. I'm challenged by the technology that I'm using today in a load shedding time. Thank you, Mr. Sanji, for accepting our invitation and sharing of the important information. Actually, one of the two areas that I wanted to touch, you were able to explain it, I think, on your last statement, that one of the training of the SMMEs. The explanation that you gave, I think I understood it because I was wondering that if they receive training and then yet they still non-compliant, what could be the challenge? But I think in your last statement, you have answered that one. And the upskilling at this point in time, I think, is the area that we should really focus on in 2023. Because if you look at the statistics from the CIDB, that for now is one-sided because I have not checked on the private one. These are the area whereby we don't see progress. And we've got very large numbers. And now I'm interested in knowing really which area we are going to use to upskill them as we do training on them. But then because of costs and affordability, they are unable to really get a good hold on the insurances, and that's where we find even most of the accident happening because they are non-compliant. In the report that we just received from Mr. Mwahi's group, because they are one of the people that are assisting us with the audits, I think that the part of the risk management is actually reflected much on issues of non-compliant on site that we hope for now, as we are dealing with the high-level construction companies, we have to really work on the SMMEs, especially the grades from level 1 up to 4. to make sure that we minimize or terminate, where possible, the amount of accidents that are happening there. So that part, I think, in your last statement, you covered it. Let me just quickly jump to the second part, which is no zero accident free, no zero accident, whatever that we are having. This is one of the key focus areas that we have agreed to implement in 2022. But our study is a bit slow on it on our side as a construction organization, whereby we are watching on mostly the accident that are being caused in the construction area. But from BBC side, we have allocated our time to say that since we were unable to miss the two areas of that needs lots of travel, which is normally around the Easter time. And now the heritage time, we are watching the trends that it doesn't really warrant much of the movement. But I think the towards and during the Christmas period, that's whereby BBCBE will now watch outside the sphere of influence of construction, what is happening on the roads, especially that we have presented to you the danger that are caused by the potholes. So we are saying that yes, there is an expansion of our scope in terms of saying the potholes are actually contributing to the motor accident. Mr. Mwahi mentioned the fatal accident of Mrs. Malaji. That is so regrettable. Had we covered those potholes, we would have not experience such a loss. But if you can provide a list, it's actually very, very important. People, we know that every soul, every life is best, is better, it's important, but then some, we mention them because of their contributions that we can see. The potholes are now becoming a serious thing in construction, because we are trying to venture into that area, but it impacts seriously on occupational health and safety. Hence, we chose to really put this across to say our safe timber should look at potholes, but we want to take it to another level. Now, maybe to just summarize everything from my side is to say that we thank you also for your support in this case, and we believe that this is an area that needs a very serious attention. And I would like to hear your response, as you have mentioned, the structure that you are having in FEM and how you work. We can prevent this together with FEM, together with government, but our CEO has also touched on the part of the private sector, which we must tap on. But I would like you to maybe just share with us, because this is very intense and critical. Lots of fatalities that are happening there. Emotional drain, because sometimes it even impact on tourism, which is another economic sector that assists in upgrading the economy. So it really affects so many aspects of human life. Just your comment on everything that I have been saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my partner.
Oh yes, Mr. Sanya, you want to respond to that, and maybe just to say thank you very much, Memwiponi, on that. And I couldn't agree more with you when you emphasize the issue of upscaling. Mr. Sanya, as you make your input, I've experienced few cases of negligence in my area, especially coming from the side of local government, where I have seen electrocution cases where people were really, really dying because of the lack of skills and, improper handle of their work environment. And the second one is a case where I've seen this municipal refuse collection, during their collection process, practicing unsafe way of executing the waste collection. And I truly agree with Nemwiponi to say this is the right time to collaborate, your efforts with the point that was made by Ntate Mofokeng earlier on of getting multiple stakeholders participating. And I think let's allow you to respond on the two areas that were raised by Nemwiponi.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I think it was quite comprehensive in terms of the coverage. So unfortunately, from an FEM perspective, we can't get politically involved. But I think certainly what I've engaged with a number of other industry bodies and looking at engaging with the likes of CIDB, how do we then upskill their members? And I think it's certainly a case of mutual benefit for the BBCBE as well to also perhaps grow your membership, because unfortunately, from a CIDB perspective, health and safety is not a core component in terms of moving from grade to grade. They look at it more from a financial capability and value of projects that the contractor works on. So I think certainly where there's a value add in terms of health and safety, contract development, etc., we certainly partner with that. So I'm engaging with the likes of the CEOs of MBSA, SAFSEC, and other MBAs as well, where we're going to certainly have a joint effort to try and encourage, whether it's CIDB, whether it's CEDA as well, to have these sessions for their contractors, and hopefully that we will then, once the contractors start growing from grade to grade within CIDB for that matter, they would be competent. And some of the factors that we picked up, I've done quite a few studies, but when you look at a contractor or subcontractor, their health and safety files are quite generic in nature. It's not site specific. So it's more a tick box exercise where they taking a safety file just to comply with certain regulations and legislation. However, it's a high risk because those individuals are not taking safety seriously. And unfortunately, it's the leadership of the subcontractor who's not serious about health and safety, then certainly that will filter down on the rest of the employees who will also take high risk within construction projects. So certainly looking forward then to perhaps engaging further with the leadership of BBCBE, Mr. Mofokeng and his team as well, that how do we then form some sort of a coalition and collaborate with the likes of CIDB and other entities as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the responses. Any other taker from the platform? Any other comment? I think, Ms. Nkuli, we are doing well on time. Just to go back and have a reflection that our webinar today is convened under the theme, creating awareness on the dangers of the potholes to communities and the cost to the emotional state, the economical cost to us as road users and as families. With that, let me allow Mr. Mofokeng to have his comment. Poka.
I just wanted to also to find out, in terms of the work that FEM is doing at the moment, we obviously have to work collaboratively to increase compliance with COIDA. And I wanted to find out from Mr. Sanjay, because one of the issues that we're trying to do is to migrate members from COID, from the compensation fund to FEM. And one of the areas where we are now experiencing some challenges is the area of audits, where members want to get their letter of good standing and they do apply, and they're told that no, it's been audited and it takes a bit of a while, for this audit to be done and for members to get their letters of good standing. I wanted to find out from Mr. Sanjay in terms of, are we able to get assistance from them as FEM, especially to get this members cleared of the audit and then get them to be transferred to FEM. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mofokeng. Yeah, so certainly what we can do is, unfortunately, from an FEM perspective, we can't engage on financial aspects with the compensation fund on employees registered with them. But maybe if we can consolidate some of the issues with your members and provide their details. We had a meeting yesterday with the chief director of the compensation fund. So certainly looking at engaging with them on these aspects, because we're also trying to transfer quite a few organizations, but they're also in audit status. There's also penalties that are being imposed. So yeah, where you have members having issues, maybe through the BBCBE can engage with the FEM, and we can provide the contact details for them to get assistance. I know there is quite a bit of frustration amongst many employers where it's taking a long time for the audits to be concluded, and unfortunately it's having an impact on their business where they're unable to operate without a letter of good standing. So I think the fortunes of the construction industry are certainly the fortunes of FEM. So we want employees to be working and of course compliant as well. So we'll try and assist wherever possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay. Any follow-up, Mr. Mofokeng, or are you covered with the responses?
I'm covered with the response, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sanjay, can I give you another minute to give us your last comments as you wrap your presentation?
I'm concluded. Thank you, Program Director.
Okay, thank you very much again to all our participants, and I can see, Nkuli, we have done well in terms of the time that you have given us, and I'm sure as to fulfilling the mandate or the objective of this webinar, talking about potholes, looking at areas of collaboration, forging those relationships and continuing to educate our communities, our leaders, and all the relevant stakeholders on the importance of ensuring that these potholes are being, well managed and well maintained. I don't know if there's any comment that you would like to put across in the platform, Mrs. Nkuli, or any of the this webinar session. Ms. Nkuli?
I would like to thank all the panelists and the guests for attending this webinar. I'm very grateful for that. And yes, of course, this webinar has been very successful and informative. And thank you so much.
Okay, I think as we wrap up this webinar, Ms. Nkuli, let me also say thank you very much for according me an opportunity to learn so much out of this platform and continue to emphasize the importance of working together as communities, because there could be so many solutions that could be born from working together. To all the participants, those who could have their inputs and clarity seeking questions across, that was very insightful and educational. And I'm sure for those who couldn't put any question or comment across, the recordings will be available, and I'm sure the panel members will continue to be available to respond to any questions and take any comments as we continue to build a better South Africa and become hopeful that we will journey together. If you allow us, Menkuli and the rest of the Black Business Council in the built environment and the FEM, to say Re a leboga, and let's all go and enjoy the last day of the heritage.